about their job responsibilities. So Eli Schloss, he's from Clearwater. Erin Doran is from Riverkeeper, and Brooke is with us this evening, as you noticed from the film, from the Hudson Valley Farm Hub. So I will actually tell you, you might want to put these very close to your mouth when you speak to them. You want to start?
Is it on? Can you hear me? Okay,
yep.
Great. Hi. So yes, I work at Clearwater. I work in the education department. I get out on the boat as often as I can, but actually most of what I'm responsible for is our land-based programming. So we do classroom visits, we do field trips next to the river, and I was in Croton Point Park just a week ago, working with a group from Scarsdale, and then I was in our main facilities in Esopus Meadows, and we are on the front lines of activism, creating the next generation of activists by teaching them about the river, by connecting them to our amazing estuary, and showing them that if they care, they will then move on to protecting it.
Thank you. Thank you, Susie, for emceeing tonight, and John, thank you as always for your beautiful and inspiring films. My name is Erin Doran. I work for Riverkeeper. We're an environmental organization headquartered here in Ossining, and we focus on protecting the river and also safeguarding the New York City drinking water supply. I'm a staff attorney for the organization, so I work on many issues that kind of span the length of the river. Some of the big ones lately have been the ongoing PCB remediation in the Hudson River, as well as Riverkeeper's fight against the Anchorages proposal that I'm sure some folks in the room are familiar with. I also do some work on safeguarding drinking water and drinking water contamination in Newburgh, New York, and on the continuing combined sewer overflow problem that you heard about a little bit in the first film in New York City.
Hi, so I am the director of the Hudson Valley Farm Hub. We are a nonprofit education and demonstration farm based on 1,250 acres in Hurley, New York, which is in Ulster County on the west side of the river, very near Kingston. We were founded about 4 years ago with funding from the Novo Foundation, primarily to create a land base from which to address some of the issues in the regional food system, and to complement some of the philanthropic efforts that were happening around supporting agriculture and healthy food and access to food and ecological agricultural practices, and generally promoting, the growing of safe, healthy, good food in our local area. So we have a farmer training program. We're doing extensive ecological work on the property to monitor long-term impacts of our practices on the land and on the water, on the wildlife. And we host a variety of crop research projects around vegetables and grains with partner organizations. So the Seed Sanctuary Project is very, very special. It's a small part of what we do, but in terms of the human component and the cultural component and the importance of understanding seeds and seed saving, it's very dear to our hearts. So we're happy that John chose it as something to profile.
Thank you. Do we have any questions to start off tonight? No questions, okay. We do, we have one up here, we have two. I'll start with you over here, so we just want to make sure it gets close to you.
Thanks. I'm Marcia Brewster. I used to work in the water sector at the UN, and I worked with Riverkeeper, and it's just a wonderful organization, and just wanted to thank you all for all you're doing. And people often ask me, well, what can I do? And so I thought maybe you might tell people what things they can volunteer for. I'm doing the water quality testing for the Sawmill River, and I know a lot of people are getting involved in testing the quality of the water in the estuaries. And by the way, it's not very good, as you undoubtedly know. But I thought maybe you could give some ideas to people about how they can participate.
Sure. So Riverkeeper has a pretty wide reach and a solid member base. And whenever there are things that people can do, we try to get that message out there. We have a huge number of people involved in our citizen science program. So sampling is definitely one of the things you can do. We're actually coming off of our biggest stream cleanup ever. We had 2,200 volunteers at 120 sites picking up 36 tons of trash on May 5th, and that was all thanks to Jen Benson, who's in the back.
Jen Wade.
So that's through our annual Riverkeeper sweep, and folks can always get involved in that or get involved on their own to do their part to clean up the Hudson. A couple of other ways to get involved. Right now, we are advocating for a ban on plastic bags and a corresponding fee on paper, and we have information out on our table in the hallway here about how you can get involved in advocating to get rid of that type of plastic pollution. And a couple of the specific examples of things that people can do that have been successful in the past. I mentioned the anchorages proposal from last year, where the Coast Guard was going to site 10 new anchorage grounds along the Hudson. And people got involved at a degree that we have not seen before. We had over 10,000 comments submitted from citizens, from municipalities, from elected officials. And those comments, those voices really made a difference, and it resulted in that proposal being suspended. So there are often alerts that we can send out about taking action, so I recommend paying attention to those and getting involved in submitting comments or getting outside and cleaning up the river, and really anything else you can do to kind of engage your community so that they're aware of what's happening.
Thank you. Did you have a question?
I guess this is another question for Erin. I was wondering if you could update us on the PCB cleanup, where that lies, what the latest news is.
Yeah, I feel like you all saw my notes. So for the PCB contamination, we are in a process where EPA is looking at essentially the status of the PCBs in the river. And for those who aren't familiar, General Electric for about 30 years dumped a bunch of toxic PCB pollution into the Hudson, and as a result, the river for nearly 200 miles is designated a Superfund site. So it's highly contaminated with this pollution, and the cleanup has been ongoing for decades. Right now, we're at a place where EPA is reviewing essentially the status of the cleanup and looking at how the river is recovering from the pollution. We actually were able to also engage the public in that process to say that, we are not satisfied with where the river is right now. There's still contamination in the fish and the sediments, and it's going to be decades before that contamination really dissipates to a level where people can safely go fishing and consume the fish from the river. So we have most recently advocated for EPA to take another look at dredging in the upper river to remove some contamination, and also to take really a new look at the lower Hudson, the stretch of the river that's below the Troy Dam, to see what can be done here to take care of the PCBs. EPA right now is talking to DEC, and that's the State Department of Environmental Conservation. I apologize for the acronyms. So EPA is talking to the state, and they're looking at new data that the state collected that will show a little bit more about the status of the contamination. So we're actually happy that EPA has put any decisions on hold until they can really review the most recent data that's available.
First, I wanted to thank Ms. Jones as an advocate for against things we didn't want generalization. This is just refreshing, and it's what I decided to put my time into from now on.
Vandana Shiva's Seed Freedom, which you can Google online. And the other one we have in Bedford Hills, Doug the Candia. I think the Westchester Food Bank just changed their name. But he grows food, and he has, it's a few years now that the Bionutrient Food Association meets in Bedford Hills once a month. And the practices in growing with inoculating the seeds with mycorrhizal fungi and using worm castings and cover crops is really helping to both sequester carbon and produce very nutrient-dense food. My two questions, Brooke, I wanted to know if the public can help in any way and be part of these. And Ellie, I wanted to know if Clearwater has obtained all the funds for the restoration. I know that was a big push and I didn't stay on top of it.
Thanks. So Ken Green, who you saw in the film, has a nonprofit organization called Seed Shed, and Ken is really managing the Seed Sanctuary project at the farm for us, with us. So he is coordinating volunteers. We don't use volunteers year-round all the time. At this point, I think as we grow into our sort of teenage and adult years at the Farm Hub, we're going to be developing a more robust public programming. Right now, though, you can go on the Seed Shed website, which is seedshed.org, and sign up to become a volunteer. We'll probably have some people come out for certainly the harvest this year. Not so sure about the plantings happening next week, but we may be able to use some extra hands for that, just the hand planting. That's one of the things that's really cool about this project for us is we're mostly involved in machine scale. We're all organic, but mostly involved in large scale produce production and grains, and it's a nice opportunity to actually do some more intimate planting and harvesting. So feel free to sign up with Seed Shed.
Thank you for your question. So the film you saw, the amazing film, thank you, John, was showing the final stage of a 5-year plan of a restoration. So we did complete that plan. That was focused on the timbers below the water line. So as you saw in the film, that was the midship section that they were working on, and that was the last section below the water line. So we've completed that one, but of course, once you complete that one, you start another plan. So we are putting together a plan with the Coast Guard, with the captains, with our development department, to begin working on the top sides. So that's going to be the next big push. This winter was pretty straightforward. It was mostly maintenance projects. There wasn't a huge amount of restoration or retrofitting. But next winter, and certainly the winter after that, we'll begin to tackle the top sides. But the timbers below the water line are certainly a more complicated and expensive and requiring skills process. So we're very happy that we got that through. But it's a wooden boat, so there's always something somewhere. So please come to our festival on June 17th and 18th and support the Clearwater that way, or come out on a public sail. We just recently were able to sail from Ossining, so I believe later in the summer we'll be having a public sail for, I believe it's the Ossining Yacht Club. But check our website and support the Clearwater. Thank you.
I do want to mention the resources that you mentioned for the festival are actually on the Take Action Now. So if you didn't get a copy of them, we have them sitting up here on the table. And the festival, a big thing here.
Yes.
Say anything about the festival?
Yeah, Broken Point Park, Father's Day weekend. The dates are always changing every year. I think I got it right, 17th and 18th, yes. Check the flyer, confirm. And it's a 2-day music festival, environmental fest. It's definitely sort of beyond any music festival that I've been to, because it really does have the environmental message behind it. It's one of our biggest outreach events, and the music is amazing. I can tell you, Jeff Tweedy from Wilco, Brianna Giddens, she was in trucks. But yeah, there's flyers out there, but it's our biggest fundraiser and outreach event. It's a really amazing time. I work at the Tide Line tent, which is our education tent, so we're there showing, we have live specimens from the river. We talk about issues that are going on in the river. We just have some amazing fun crafts, fish prints, fish banners that that students and children and people of all ages can get involved in, so please come on out.
And Friday, tomorrow, as I understand, is the last day for discount tickets if you haven't gotten your Clearwater tickets. So go online. It's on your Take Action Nows.
Thank you, Susie. I forgot that detail. Very important.
We are really very fortunate to have people travel from all over to come to the Clearwater Festival. If you've never had an opportunity to go, we are fortunate that it's in our backyard and so accessible. So, yes.
Brooke, hello. I wanted to ask you more about your farmer training program. How many farmers you're training and where are they going to go on your land to farm? Do they have their own farms that they are going to work on?
Great, yeah. So our farmer training program was designed around a couple of things. One being the strengths of our farm, which is large scale. We purchased the farm land from a family named Gill. It was Gill Farms, a 3-generation family farm, primarily in sweet corn at the wholesale level. So along with the land, we acquired a good deal of machinery and farm equipment, and we're set up very well for that. So we also identified what was kind of a gap in farmer training programs in the Northeast and the Hudson Valley in particular. And that's training for people who actually have some farming experience, maybe didn't grow up on a farm, because what's happening is there are a lot of young people interested in going into farming, but they're not the same people that are the second or third generation in the farm families, right? So there are people who did not grow up learning how to drive a tractor before they could ride a bike. However, there are a lot of apprenticeship programs and beginning farmer programs, but not so much for people who want to kind of take it to the next level and have a bridge before they actually acquire their own farm or become farm managers. So that's sort of the niche that we were hoping to fill. So right now we have 5 full-time, what we call pro farmers. They're professional farmer trainees. They came to us with 6 or 7 years minimum farming experience. And they're very varied, actually. One of the unique things about our program that we're really pleased to be able to do is that we actually, our farmer trainees are employees at our farm, so they're paid a modest salary, they're given benefits and the option of free housing so that they don't have to be worried while they're with us for, say, 3-4 years about, how they're going to actually put gas in their car while they're trying to learn. So we have kind of a really individualized approach to this. One of our farmers is interested in just becoming a farm manager. He's actually the son of some farm workers who have been on the farm for a long time, Mexican Americans. He's interested in becoming a professional farm manager, so he's doing an internship with our vegetable production team. We have another farmer who wants to go into grains and hops, and she's doing a hops project this summer. And we have another young woman who wants to create a nonprofit education farm. So it's, we were kind of surprised. At the beginning, we thought we'd have sort of like bring in 3 people a year, and they'd be sort of in classes, and we'd do the same thing and graduate them out all together. And we really discovered that each one is so different. So we're learning too as we go. But mostly they want to own their own farms and live that way.
I'm Mary Duffy. a missionary back from years in Guatemala. And there is a colony, a group of Guatemalans here in Mount Kisco, I believe. And they would appreciate your hopeful take on the farming. They are in a bind of being forced to buy seeds now after always having their own. But I would love for you to connect with them, to give them some hope to take back to Guatemala.
So thank you for sharing that with me. I want to let you know that, so we have a crew at our farm, some of whom are not fluent in English. One of the things that you didn't see in the film that is really cool is when our partners from Akwesasne visit, when we're in those circles that you see, we're actually translating Spanish and Mohawk and English. We have developed a small interpretation team on the farm so that our farm crew can participate fully in all of our meetings and all of our trainings, and are sharing what they know about the land because they've been there a long time, and production with us, and also learning about the big picture of what we're trying to do. So Jon was nice enough to facilitate having subtitles created for the film for some of our crew who haven't seen the film yet. So maybe you could give me your contact information, and after this, and when we have the final version with the subtitles, perhaps you can share that with the community here. Thanks.
Jon, these are available online, your films. Is that correct? No, they're not.
No, not yet. Soon. Oh, we want people to keep coming out to these events. So if I put them online, people can sit home and watch them on their computer on their lap, which is fine. But later in the year. But at HudsonRiverStories.com, you can see all the other films we've made in the Hudson River Risk series, and a variety of other things. And these films will be up there soon. But if you go to that HudsonRiverStories.com, there is a schedule where other screenings are going to be. So now that you've seen them and gotten all full of hope and optimism, you can tell your friends to come out and equally filled.
Or they can hold a screening of their own.
Absolutely. Yeah. Quite encouraged.
Questions?
Brooke, could you talk more about like the growing season for the special corn? And I guess in the movie they had mentioned how the harvest was really productive that year. And I'm wondering, like, was that because of soil or what was going on that made it so fruitful?
Well, so this past season was only the second year that we have had the seed sanctuary. So I think, I have to see the part in the film, but we don't have a lot of seasons of growing that corn to compare it to. And as Ken pointed out, the red corn, for example, was down to 2 years. So we were really productive, really pleased. There was some damage due to the birds were really bad at one point last season. So, you win a few, you lose a few. We do happen to have really fantastic soil where we are. We are in a very special part of the Hudson Valley known as the Early Flats, and this is land that was created by a glacier hundreds and hundreds of years, thousands of years ago. And the soil is particularly excellent. So I don't know that there was anything to compare it to, actually, as far as these crops go, but we had a good year with it.
This is for Erin. You particularly that you're involved in some area of ameliorating the runoff problem that was shown in one of the films. What's happening, or is there anything positive going on now in that regard?
That is, so the combined sewer overflow problem in New York City is huge. The city receives about 27 billion gallons of combined sewer overflow per year. There is movement in the right direction in some places. So there are, for different waterways in the city, the Department of Environmental Protection down there develops plans to figure out how to best deal with what's coming out of the sewers during rain events. And in a couple of those plans, the city has proposed to capture the overflow, which, you know, from Riverkeeper's perspective is the best control. If you want to take care of sewage pollution, you capture it, and then you treat it when there's capacity in the wastewater treatment plant. Unfortunately, at the majority of the waterways in the city, they aren't capturing the flow, and instead they're using technologies like disinfection. So they'll use something that might get rid of bacteria, but doesn't do anything to address some of the other problems with sewage overflows that were absolutely visible in the film. You have odor, you have trash, you have all sorts of things that are coming out, oils, sheens, toxics coming from the stormwater. So there are a number of things that the city isn't addressing in some of these plans by targeting just bacteria. There are also a couple of plans that instead of capturing the flow, will divert it to another waterway. So that's, again, not necessarily addressing the problem. So that's an area where, there's some positive movement, but the problem is so huge and there are so many flaws in some of the plans that the city has developed that it will be an ongoing issue that the city is going to have to deal with for the foreseeable future.
We still have time for questions. Is there a project happening in the village of Austining that has anything to do with stormwater?
I heard something about it.
Jen, would you like to talk about that? I think you should.
I'm going
I'm going to give you a little bit of an
Erin say
intro here. So Jen Benson, we are the Austining Documentary and Discussion Series is an entirely volunteer organization. We have Paul Stark, we have Cornell Rydstrom back there, we have Jen Benson, we have Lauren Royce over there. I'm Susie Ross. I'm sorry, I probably did not introduce myself. And there's a few members missing this. Then we have Ro, who's filming everything we're talking about this evening. Ro Moran. And so all of us have different hats on in our day lives. And Jen is in charge of outreach. She's the outreach coordinator for Riverkeeper. And she is obviously a member of our committee. And it was Jen's idea for our Sweet project here in Austining, because Riverkeeper is headquartered here in Austining. It was her idea to launch this as part of our Sweet project 2 weekends ago. So I'm going to let you speak a little bit about it.
Okay, so for a little bit of context, to expand on what Erin said, is in a community where there is a separate storm sewer system means that everything that washes into these storm drains that you see up here, whether it be gum wrappers or straws or any other debris or oil from the streets, travels through our underground our stormwater infrastructure and right out into the river. And so we saw in some communities in Maryland that they created storm drain stencils. So folks who are passing by the storm drains on the street and thinking about throwing something onto the ground or pouring oil or grease down a storm drain would think twice, and it would create that moment of hesitation needed for them to make a different decision. And so we worked with some local artists in Terrytown to designed stencils that say "No more pollution, please, drains to Hudson River" in both English and in Spanish. And so we had our first sort of sweep on Saturday, May 5th. We had about 20 volunteers participate. We probably did 25 storm drains, working our way up Main Street from the train station. So if you're around the Main Street area, check them out. They're pretty cute. And so our next date for stenciling is going to be the 23rd of June, and we're looking for more volunteers. We actually had volunteers ranging in age from, I think, 12 or less to 8. Gabby, how old are you? 8? Okay. Gabby was one of our stenciling volunteers. She's actually in that photo up there, and she helped make it happen. So we will take anyone of any age, and it's a really fun project. We also have tattoos, and even if you can't volunteer, you can still snag one. So please consider participating. Whatever ones we don't get done, DPW is going to stencil for us. So by the end of the summer, every storm drain in the village will be stenciled. So we're really appreciative for that.
We have a question.
Are you involved with the school system?
Yeah, so Erin can speak to that a little bit about.
I know they have to do a certain number of hours community services.
Yeah, so a lot of students from Hudson High School participate in our annual Riverkeeper sweep projects. We also sample in partnership with Artie Carlucci and Bridget Bauman, two incredible instructors at Hudson High School who engage the students directly in our water quality monitoring program. But we also have, these are open volunteer opportunities, and they have been promoted to the school district. So anyone who is interested in participating, regardless of age, is welcome.
Thanks, Jen. So I have a general question for each of you. You're all non-for-profits, so money is always going to be the number one thing that's always one of those things that keep your organization awake. But aside from that, what are the main things that, we're supposed to be talking about hope, I know, but we also have to talk about those things that perhaps the community can help with, or, but your focus is, what are the things that keep your organization awake at night right now?
So I think I've mentioned several of them already for Riverkeeper. Plastic pollution is a huge problem. It's something that we saw, in droves with our Riverkeeper sweep this year. So that's something that is at the top of our list right now. The sewage problem, not only in New York City, but really throughout the watershed. The idea of having aging infrastructure that is just not adequate for the current use is a significant problem, and I'll just throw it out there that that's a money issue too, but we won't get into that. The legacy contamination in the river, things that have been in the river for a long time and just aren't getting cleaned up, is a problem, and the general kind of reindustrialization of the river, so projects that aim to utilize the river in a way that really isn't, conducive to the aquatic life, to communities, and to people who use the waterway. That's a constant force that we have to work against at Riverkeeper. And again, we try to keep folks updated on what we're doing, so our action alerts and our ability to engage the public is something that is so important. And when there are big things coming up, when there are key decision points, being able to engage people, being able to communicate what's important and why it's important at that time, it is something that we try to do. So I would encourage you to visit our website and to stay up to date with what we're working on, and we will get you the information when you need it.
So what keeps us up at night is how hard it is for farmers to compete in the marketplace. And so I would say probably one of the most important things that you can do as individuals is to support local farms by going to your local farm stand, local farmers market, ask your supermarket manager, where's the local section, who are you buying from, talk to your public schools, just, check in. Have you thought about, working with new ways to procure food that could possibly bypass the system as it is in our state school system? That's a long story, but just posing the question sometimes can be helpful. So supporting local farms is really, really big on the list. Also land, there are some organizations like American Farmland Trust and Scenic Hudson who are pretty involved in land protection that's specifically related to agricultural lands. And so supporting those nonprofits can be extremely helpful. And water and land are connected for sure. So supporting these good organizations, I think, it's all part of the same spirit in a lot of ways. And finally, food. Somebody mentioned the food bank, and I think the other thing that keeps us up at night is how many people that exist in our neighborhoods, even, and our small cities along the Hudson, who are far from easily accessing good, healthy, locally grown produce and other kinds of food. So supporting food pantries and those efforts to get that kind of food, especially to young people, and in neighborhoods where it's hard to access, super helpful. So supporting local food pantries.
I'll mention two issues that are very important right now. One is microplastics. So Jen was talking about plastic bag then, which is incredibly important. The microplastics are an issue because plastic, as many of us probably know, that doesn't biodegrade, but it just turns into smaller plastic. So aboard the Clearwater, we have a monitoring program to test the river for the amounts of microplastics that we find in the river. And then in our education programs, we're talking about ways that we can reduce the amount of microplastics. And it's a very interesting and serious topic, but it's also very immediate for the students that we work with. There are very simple and clear action items that students and anyone can take to reduce the amount of plastic going into the river, into our environment. Just wash your clothes with less. You think maybe it's a degraded plastic bag, but it's also our fleece fabrics, all of our nylon clothes. So another source of the microplastic is the microfibers. So natural fibers are a great alternative, and maybe your fleece doesn't need to be washed as often as you thought. The other issue, and this is something we've been working on in Clearwater for many years, is the Indian Point nuclear power plant, which is slated to close, and that was a huge victory for all of our partners in Clearwater. We were working on that issue. But now I think just as important, and I think really valuable, we're working on the transition plan. So not only are we working on that the decommissioning is safe and that the waste is taken care of, and it's going to be stored on site for the foreseeable future. So understanding and making sure that that is safe and above board and a transparent process, but also worker retention and retraining. Because whenever you talk about this issue, it is an issue of jobs as well as safety, right? And when I work with middle schoolers, I talk about cost-benefit analysis, right? And so we've finally done the right thing in that analysis and decided to close this aging plant. However, the Buchanan-Verplank, school district, gets made. I won't quote the percentage, but gets a significant percentage of their budget from the power plant. So just being able to deal with those issues. If we're going to advocate for it to close, we need to be involved on board for the transition and make sure that the workers and the budgets and the revenue is somehow taken care of, or at least acknowledged. And I think that's really important work.